Hey, this is Sky. Welcome to my YouTube channel. So let's talk a little bit about the importance of travel. You have to leave your nest. You have to break out of that little bubble that you live in and go and travel at least once or twice in your life. Travel the country, and then if you can, leave the country. Those two vacations, if you could go for more than just a couple days, go for a couple weeks, and really explore. Those two vacations will change your life. They will really help you grow up. They'll help you mature. And most importantly, they'll help you break beyond the groupthink that infects us all. We can become local yokels. Even in big cities, people think when you say the word local yokel, you're talking about hillbillies or rednecks in some small town. And that is one definition, but you get the same type of localized, sheltered, short-sighted mentality in big cities too. Anybody who just stays in their little hometown without ever seeing what else is out there, just experiencing it, understanding how other people are, how other cultures are, what other perspectives of this planet might look like. And they just, you're just stuck in a world where nothing grows, where you were when you were a child. You need to finally mature. And one of the ways that we do that and we understand this world around us in a really, really different way is by seeing it. It's not enough to just talk to people online about their experiences in other places. You may know people because of social media all over the country, all over the world. You can't just use that as your experience of seeing how the world is. You can't just watch it on TV or watch it in YouTube videos. Google Maps isn't going to help you. You really have to just go on a couple big trips and see it. When I traveled the country, and I've done this, I've traveled America, countless times. In fact, I was born in a school bus that my father owned. And by the time I was 5 years old, I'd already been to 30 states. But you don't remember much when you're that age. So when I got older, I started traveling. When I was in my teens, I started traveling. One of the first big trips I took when I was 16, I think I was 16. I was about 16, maybe 15, somewhere in that age. And I took a trip on the train across the country. And I took it from Washington, D.C. out to Oakland, California. And then took the bus across the bridge into San Francisco, stayed in San Francisco for a week or two, and then did the entire journey back and stopped along the way. I got what was called a rail pass, and it cost like $300, $400, whatever it was, but you get to use it for the entire summer or for any amount of time. 3 months, I think, is the allotment. And for that 3 months, I just got on and off the train wherever. Had a bunch of adventures. Not all of them were fun. Some of them were kind of fucked up, actually. But when I came back, I was a lot wiser. And I really got to see America in a different way than I had ever really experienced it before. And I felt like I was a pretty smart guy. I'd been around well-traveled people, so I had their stories. And I read the papers, I watched TV, I've seen all kinds of videos. And, you think you know a place when you've seen enough of it. But you have to actually experience this country to really have an appreciation for it. To go to different states, we can live in our little region of the country and be infected by the groupthink that exists in that region. So I've lived out west, I've lived up north in the Northeast, and now I live in the Southeast. Each different part of the country has kind of a different mentality. Sure, there's politics that might be more dominant in one part of the country than in others. Here in Florida, it's slightly more, not much, but slightly more conservative than it is liberal. Out in California, it's slightly more liberal than it is conservative. But there's still a California mentality, even if you're the most diehard Republican and you grew up out in California, you're a Californian, and there's certain things that you do and act and say and think, and that is unique to that area. Same with up north. I've noticed this from living down south here, that northerners are pretty easy to point out. Not only just because they talk funny, but I know that's what they say about southerners, but you really catch that northern accent. As soon as you get up into northern Maryland, like Baltimore and up, they all talk funny if you ask me. Some kind of weird speech impediment, all the way up to Massachusetts. And you can tell them, when you meet them at a party or wherever, social function, because they think different, act different, they like certain foods. It has nothing to do with politics. But the point is that if you don't break out of your little bubble, then you have a limited perspective of the world. You're still going to be infected by groupthink, and then most people within their little area stay localized. I do this here. And I don't leave Central Florida very much. If I have to, I'm not interested really in going anywhere at this point in my life. I've been a lot of places, and I just like my life here. But I'm thankful that I have traveled. Because if I had never left this area, or whichever area that I, lived in this country, if I just stayed out west and never left, or stayed up in DC and never left, if you just stay localized, all you get is a local point of view. You just see through the filter that exists within that area. One of the best things you could do for yourself, as far as breaking beyond the groupthink that exists in your area, is to leave your country. Leave America. Not for good. I'm not talking about expatriation. I'm just talking about vacations. Go on a trip outside of America, an extended one. Canada doesn't really count. I've been to Canada. It's all American TV. They love us. They might talk shit about us in Canada on the internet, but you go up to Montreal or Toronto, Vancouver, places I've been, it's just America. You get some annoying French motherfuckers up there. With the French up in Canada are funny because they don't even like French people from France. They're like a unique brand of French, but you really got to leave the continent. Go to Europe. Go to anywhere. And you really get to see the planet and humanity, human nature, from a different perspective. You really get an appreciation for our hierarchy of needs and survival as a creature. Because you can't forget that we're just part of the animal kingdom. You really get an appreciation for human accomplishment when you can go to other places, especially places that have a longer history than America. America is a very young country. My grandparents went on a drinking tour. This was years ago, but they went on a drinking tour of pubs in Scotland and in Ireland, both areas. And I think they were in England also. So all three. They went, and he sent me a picture of him having a pint and I forget if it was in England or Ireland, but in a pub that had been there for 700 years and was still owned by the same family. America wasn't even a wet dream back in those days. So it's just interesting to be able to do a little travel, to see a little bit, learn a little bit, experience a little bit, and then when you come back, you have such a greater appreciation. This is the experience that I've had, because I've traveled outside the country pretty extensively, and I've been to Africa a couple times, I've been to Europe, I've been to the Middle East, I've been to Israel a couple times, so I've done a little travel, and I was in Africa for about 6 weeks, almost 2 months. I came back to America, and we traveled all around. I didn't just stay in one place, traveled all around. When I get back to America on that last trip, I really had an appreciation for this country that I had never had before. A sense of patriotism that went far beyond just your local politicians or the current president or anything like that. Far beyond just being flag waving, partisan, whatever party that you subscribe to. And really appreciate what we accomplished here as far as creating a society, a model society. We can take it for granted and think that this place sucks, this place is shit, there's so much racism, there's so much this, that, and start pointing at these culture wars that are being fed to you because of ratings, by the media, and whatever else that people latch onto. And there's a lot of critical stuff you can say about any country, but about our country. But there's also a lot of good, and you don't really realize the good until you can go other places. And I really realized how incredibly diverse this country is. It may not feel that way all the time because we just live on our side of town. But when you go to other countries and realize that in that country, whichever country, I've been to a lot of places, and shit, you pick any country in the Middle East, any one of them, I don't care which one, pick one. Pick any country on the continent of Africa, doesn't matter which one, pick one. Just pick one, it doesn't matter which one. All you have is just people from that country. There's some diversity, some. I'm not saying there's no diversity, I'm not speaking in absolutes. There's some. But for the most part, when you go to Egypt, you see Egyptians. That kind of thing. You come to America, shit, we got neighborhoods for countries that you never even heard of. Whole neighborhoods full of them. Every single major city in this country pretty much has a Chinatown. I've never seen an America town in any other country in the world. Except for Canada, that's almost all America town. They love us. McDonald's on every corner, they watch our TV. But it'll really help you learn about yourself and to break beyond the groupthink of your country. Because we think a certain way in America because of our history, even if it is short. We think a certain way because of our Constitution and the way it's written. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. We have a certain sense of rebellious freedom. Even our language, started by Webster, those dictionaries that came out. He didn't invent the English language, but we speak that language. We use those words to define the language that we speak. And Webster started his dictionaries like back in the 1800s. I mean, whatever it was, you have to go on Wikipedia and look at the timeline. But he started those dictionaries with the sole purpose of pissing off the English and saying, we don't fucking speak your language. We have our own version of it. So we have our own culture here that we're all infected by. We're all brainwashed by, like it or not. And it's not until you leave the country and see what else is out there that you can actually experience just a different perspective altogether. A non-American perspective. Perspectives that are hundreds, sometimes thousands of years older than ours. Before this continent was even discovered, before they even knew that it was even on the map. They have cultures that existed, and it's interesting to experience that. And you don't have to become one of them, but just to be open-minded when you travel and to see how the other half lives, so to speak. When in Rome, and just try not to be such a tourist. It's not like I pretend that I'm African when I'm going to Africa, but I try to understand where the African is coming from, what they're thinking about, what their life is like. You got to travel. One of the biggest benefits, which I mentioned, and I'll reiterate it in the end of the video, is that it helps you to become an individual. It helps you to break beyond the virus of groupthink. Helps you become less of a sheep. Thanks for watching.